Hey, Ben, thank you for coming on the Eighth Lane podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So excited to talk to you about just like a wide variety of things today. Let's start out with kind of a bio, who you are, what you do, and why you love doing it, I guess.
Okay.
Just pretty brief.
I'll give you like a little Cliff Notes version of who I am.
Yes.
So my name is Ben Light. I live in Heber City, Utah. I am currently a ultra runner. I do coaching for endurance runners. And I do personal training, and then I do motivational speaking and brand marketing for like as a consultant for lots of different brands. My niche for coaching, endurance coaching, is I call it strength endurance. I combined strength training, like more of like Olympic style / CrossFit kind of style strength training, and I mix it with endurance running. And so it makes me a little bit of a different coach, and I have a little bit different clientele. A lot of my clientele are either like ex-military or big into anyone that's big into strength training in the gym that has done a lot of work on themselves. They've put on muscle and they want to get into a new challenge of ultra running, don't know how to convert what they've done in the gym to out on the trail. And then how do you like stay strong and keep that muscle when you're putting in all those hours and miles out on the trail, and you don't want to burn it all off and look like a runner. So it's kind of like they kind of want to stay like this hybrid. So everybody uses the word hybrid athlete. And so I'll pair my clients with swimming, biking, running, climbing, lifting, whatever their desired goal is. And then depending on the client, it's like their background, what they know, what they have to utilize. Some have home gyms, some have, big corporate gyms that they can utilize. So I'll take a client from whatever their current fitness is and build them towards their goal based on what they have available. So it's all customized. Everything is customized to that client. So it's hard to share, like a client can share their program with someone else, but it's kind of built around that other client.
Yeah, if you're starting from different places, and even if you have the same goal, like using the same program probably won't get you there unless you're the exact same person.
Yeah. And then within ultra running, I specialize, obviously, I'm not a shorter distance guy. I'm a little bit of a longer distance guy.
I know I saw a 300-mile thing this last year, which is nuts.
Yeah. So I do 200 plus. That's kind of like my niche, and that's kind of like my love is the longer events. I find that I'm a little bit larger stature for a runner, for most runners, smaller for most CrossFitters, kind of like this in between. But my muscle strength doesn't necessarily help me with my top end speed, but what it does do is helps me over the distance. That's what I've found where my strength is that this muscle endurance that I have from the gym and from weightlifting makes me very competitive after the 100-mile distance.
So let's kind of get into what programming looks like for strength and endurance at the same time. Because traditionally, right, with just an endurance sport, usually there's some type of base block, then there's a build block, a taper, and then you race.
Yep.
So how do you throw in strength training so that it kind of cohesively meshes with that endurance training?
Sure. So let's just like use a fake client as an example. They'll come to me and they have a goal of running, whether it's a 100 milers or 200-mile event. Let's say it's 6 months out. That's a good even number. Most people look for coaches about 6 months out from event. And so I'll take my strength training into 3 phases. I call it the foundation build phase. And we'll say that's the first 2 months, the first 1/3 of that training cycle. The second 1/3, I call it a transition. It's basically a VO2 max speed transition. So we're taking that strength build and transitioning it into more heavier running, faster speed utilization, building the VO2 max with intervals. Whereas the foundation build, we're kind of building our zone 2. We're not trying to stress the body. We're actually trying to incorporate getting the body used to the strength training program, because my programs are a lot different than most people that are just gym rats. You know, it's kind of like a CrossFit style, more of a full body, but instead of CrossFit being a very short, as fast as you can go, it's like sprint, it's more of an endurance. So it could, my programs could last from either 60 minutes to 90 minutes. So you, just like an endurance running event, you have to like strategize on how hard you push during the lifting session, because if you push too hard too fast, then you're like suffering the rest of the time through the rest of the workout.
So it's almost like a mental training too, of like, okay, this is how you learn to pace yourself over a set period of time.
Exactly.
Okay. Cool.
Exactly. So that's that building phase in the first phase. Then we start transitioning that into the speed phase and for the next 2 months. And then the last 2 months is the endurance phase. So it's and basically, if you can imagine a teeter-totter, where the teeter-totter is lower on the left and higher on the right. So lower on the left, that means it's high on your strength training and low on your running volume. In the middle, it's like that teeter-totter is starting to swing the other way. And so now it's even. Now you got about an even amount of time or volume spent in your training, a 50-50 between the strength training and the running. And then the last 2 months, the teeter-totter basically swings all the way the other way, where it's lower on the strength training. We're taking all that strength build and we're translating it into endurance. And so it's going to be heavy on the running, heavy on the vert if you have an event that has a lot of vert, and then lower on the strength training, so that you're not overtaxing your body between the two.
When you say lower on the strength training, do you mean time spent strength training? Do you mean sets per week? Do you mean like intensity per set? What do you mean like lower on the strength training?
Okay, all of the above.
Okay.
So depending on the client, depending on their current fitness, depending on what their goals are, will dictate how many days per week that they're strength training, how many days per, how many hours, let's say this, because I do everything by time.
Okay.
How much time spent strength training versus how much time spent running. And then over on the endurance, it's going to be less. It's going to be a higher amount of time running and a lower amount of time strength training. That said, those strength training sessions will go down to like, I still keep about 2 days a week in strength training. It's still 2 days a week of full body. The upper body, they can still lift heavy. There's not too much is being affected. If they still want to keep a high strength on the bench or on shoulders or on, anything upper body. The lower body, though, is where we kind of tailor the strength training and pull back. And we move from heavy weights to more mobility, muscle activation. We'll still do like stuff with, we still want to hit your glutes, your hamstrings, and your quads and your calves like 2 days a week. But the intensity, the amount of reps, the amount of weight, we're going to go from more lifting to more body weight style, like calisthenics and stuff like that. We want those muscles not to atrophy. We want them to stay strong. We want them to stay like the biggest thing about most runners in the last phases, like my endurance phase or their last like peak training, is a lot of times people will get like high hamstring pains, their glutes will shut down because they're so focused on so many miles or so much time. And there's only so much time in the day. And a lot of these are professionals. They have work, they have family, they have everything. The first thing that people like sacrifice from a time standpoint is recovery, rolling out, taking the extra time for mobility and stuff like that. So if we already have an allotted amount of time, like that's for strength training, I try to throw in more of the mobility, muscle activation, make sure our glutes are continuously firing. That's the most important thing. Like the minute one of the glutes shut down, it's like a domino effect in the body. Like the glute shuts down, the quad takes a little bit extra work, the hamstring, the quad shuts down, the hamstring then's taking all the work and the hip flexors and different things. And then you get the high hamstring right underneath the glute, like pain. You start to get Achilles pain because now your tight hamstrings are pulling on your calves, knee pain, ankle pain. Like it's like a domino effect. And so many people are on this high miles and they're trying to like balance these little ailments that are coming, and like they're freaking out, and and if you're in the peak, you're like only so many weeks away from your event, and you're like freaking out. Oh my gosh, am I going to make it? Like, and stuff. So if we can do a progressive but safe build, and then keep everything firing properly, make sure that there's still the allotted time for the rolling out. When your volume goes up, so should your recovery. More sleep, more nutrition, more rolling out, more muscle work. My wife is a very, very talented massage therapist, and she just works on athletes. And it's crucial to get that muscle work, because especially when you're doing these longer runs plus the strength training, that lactic acid is just building up in those muscles. And unless you're flushing it properly with like a good amount of rolling out, it's just going to solidify in there and lock up. And when that lactic acid locks up, you're limiting a percentage of your muscle is of no use. And so it would be like if you were a sports car and you got this V12 high performance Formula One engine, and over time you start running on 11 cylinders, 10 cylinders, 8 cylinders, like if you're down running on 6 cylinders and you go into your race against people running on 12 cylinders, you're not going to perform. And it's the same way with the muscles, with the rolling out, the recovery and everything, is if you're not on top of that, if your volume of recovery is not going up with your volume of training, then you're setting yourself up for disaster and for injury.
So really, to balance like time management and then like recovery at the same time, you're incorporating strength and recovery kind of into one during that last kind of phase of training before your race.
And believe me, I still allot a certain amount of time for mobility and strength, or mobility and recovery from day one to their event. But it should increase as their volume increases.
Because your volume's gonna peak, right?
Exactly.
Before your race. So that's awesome. Do you give your clients guidance on nutrition as well? I mean, we talked a little bit nutrition before we started rolling the podcast. Yeah. But I want to hear your take on nutrition and maybe what you do with clients. Kind of explain that a little bit.
Yeah, I advise on nutrition. I'm not a nutritionist. I have years of experience between strength training, like phases that I've gone through, stuff that I've used for myself, and then also trained within ultra running and trial by error, different options and stuff. So I put that out there. Yes, I don't charge for nutrition. It's just part of my coaching package that they get nutrition. Oh, but my nutrition is not like a macro system. I don't give macros. I give like nutrition advice, I guess you could say. And I'm a big believer, like it doesn't like I have, you could have vegan, you could have paleo, you could have low carb or keto, a wide range. My biggest thing is whatever you decide your nutrition works for you, I advise on eating clean. So we talk about processed foods. We talk about my nutrition revolves around like more of a carb or a loading phase before activity. and post activity and during activity to optimize performance. And we design that around whatever their preferences. So I'm not one of these coaches that's like, all my clients are vegans or all my clients are low carb like myself. If someone comes to me that wants to understand better and help with low carb, that would be the closest thing that I would give them a nutrition plan. And all I do is I set them up with the guidelines of how to start the low carb process and the different phases moving into, becoming a low carb athlete. Outside of that, it's kind of like, it's not like nutrition's kind of like a religion.
I know. There's
sport.
Like cult followings.
So it's
like,
everything. I'm like, like whatever works for you, that's great. Yeah. Because honestly, you see high performance athletes from all levels in all different varieties of nutrition programs.
Yeah. Like you actually cannot deny that some nutrition might work better for one person than the other.
How does someone say that their digestive system is the same as someone else when someone is brown hair, someone is blonde hair, someone is tall, someone is short? We all have physical differences. So why is that not limited to our digestive system? Some people have celiac. Some people have Crohn's disease. Some people are diabetics. Like our bodies are all different. So the most important thing for an athlete is to figure out what works for them. And the only way to do that is try a little bit of everything, maybe. I'm not saying be unorganized, but if you know that, hey, I really like how I feel when I eat steak, or I don't like how I feel when I eat steak, but I like how I feel when I eat fish, or I like eggs, or I don't like any protein, more so I like vegetables and fruit. Listen to your body. That's my biggest thing. It's listen to your body. Now, I will say, I think eating clean is the most important thing. Processed foods, they make our mouths and our smile a little bit and our tongues happy. Listen to your body when it hits the stomach. If it spikes your insulin and then it dumps you, if it makes you feel yucky or puffy in the next morning, or your joints, pay attention to that. As you refine your nutrition, as you continue to be consistent in training, and you keep you pay attention, have a journal, pay attention, say, what activity did I do yesterday? What did I eat and how did I feel the next day? Just like anything else, you can fine tune that stuff. It's hard to remember, man, I had a really good day 2 weeks ago, really good run. What did I eat the day before? If it's that important to you, keep a journal, document and fine tune it. And your intake is going to look different than somebody else's. And, be open-minded, but also be understanding that what works for them is different than what works for you. And, celebrate their wins with their nutrition and celebrate your wins with your nutrition.
We're excited to announce our first podcast sponsor, Kreatures of Habit. They have a great overnight oat product called Meal One. There's a ton of different flavors, and each flavor has just about 30 grams of plant-based protein. You put it in the fridge the night before, take it out the morning of, and you have a nice balanced breakfast to fuel you for your workout. If you use our code STORER at creaturesofhabit.com, you get 10% off. This episode is brought to you by Coach Soak. Coach Soak's mission is to help athletes by providing products to help them in their recovery. Their products are derived from natural ingredients and incorporate things like magnesium flakes, sea salts, and essential oils. Use our code in the description for 10% off. Yeah, and that's why I think that this cult following behind specific diet adherence is almost to our detriment, because experimenting with different things and asking people, why does this work for you, or what works for you, so that you can improve too. Eventually we'll just be better for everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I wanted to get into a little bit as well, your company motto or maybe your Instagram handle, Adventure Your Potential.
Yeah. I'm passionate about that.
Yeah. Talk to me about that.
Okay.
What does that mean?
So Venture Your Potential, that's my Instagram handle. It's actually my company branding name. It means more than just in the running. It's more of a life thing. So adventure your potential. We know that this life is one crazy adventure, I guess you could say. And when I think of an adventure, I think of exploring or a journey into the unknown. If you want to grow as an individual to a potential, I feel we all have a limitless possibility of a potential. There's no like, I've reached my potential. Wherever you're at, you could always go more. You know, it's just like climbing a peak of a mountain. You get up to that mountain, you're like, I wonder what it's like getting onto that other peak over there. There's always something a little higher. We can always aspire to do better, to do more, to increase our capacity for whatever we're after, our goals. And so to get there, we have to step out of our comfort zone of where we're currently at. Our current place in life, if we want to grow, we have to take courage to step into the unknown. And once you step into the unknown, you are self-discovering an adventure that's going to have, ups and downs. You're going to have wins and losses. I mean, that's part of life, is gaining experience. You can gain experience by doing something right or being successful at an opportunity, or being defeated. But my defeats, like I was on a podcast just a bit ago and they asked me, is there anything in your life that you would want to change? And instantly I sat there and thought about it and I was like, no, actually, no. Like so many people will say, I wish I didn't do this, or I wish I didn't do that. Some of my failures or unsuccessful attempts at something, whether it was in ultra running, whether it was in my personal life or anything, is what created me. I mean, some of my biggest unsuccessful attempts within ultra running have been my biggest pivotal moments, pivoting and making changes, trying to correct, what went wrong? How can I correct it? What did I learn from it? And resilience, when people talk about being resilient as an ultra runner or as a resilient person, resilient is not deflecting negativity or being resilient to things coming at you. Resilient is all about bouncing back from falling down. It's all about getting back up. How do you respond to what just happened? For an example, in 2019, I created a project, the Pyrenees project. I wanted to run across the Pyrenees on the Hout HRP route. It's a Hout route. It's a high route. It's 400 miles. And I did my research and everything. Was this
your first long distance 400-mile attempt? Okay.
This would have been my longest attempt, 400 miles.
Longest attempt.
Prior to that, in 2018, I did 300 miles. But I prepared for it. There was a lot invested in it. I'm over there in Spain. I got all my caches set, and I start the first day out, the first day of a 10-day event. I blew up. And what happened was, it was circumstantial. There's nothing I could do about it. But what happened was so in the Pyrenees, it's a very high altitude, and so you have a lot of streams and water supplies. And to do it like a self-supported effort, you're going to have to pull water, obviously, from springs. And I had all of them marked on my GPX file, everything. Well, when I started, it hadn't rained for a week.
Oh, no.
I didn't know any different.
No.
I didn't know, springs at the lower elevations won't run unless it has recent rainfall. So I pull into my first 2, they're there. I refilled, everything's great. I started going through a drier area. I'm like 50 miles into my run, and I hit dried up spring after dried up spring after dried up spring. Like,
how many hours in are you at this point?
So I started at 12 midnight.
Okay.
So I'm already hitting noon, at high noon, a lower altitude. And one other thing I didn't realize, how humid it is over by
so you're
the Mediterranean.
Sweating more, so you probably needed more electrolytes too.
And I at this time I'm really young in my understanding of nutrition, electrolytes. I knew a lot, but I was still like, I know way more today.
Yeah.
Based on experiences.
As you should, right?
Like, and this was a pivotal moment. And so when I went into this, obviously a self-supported run across the Pyrenees, weight matters. So I strategized with dehydrated meals and Martin drink mix.
Stop.
You take water away from those 2 things.
I don't want to drink Martin without the water. Like, that's so bad.
You can't keep your electrolyte ratio proper.
Yeah.
I'm walking in the blazing sun, no water. Like, I'm at that point where I'm like sucking on a piece of clothing that I sweated, you know?
Oh my gosh.
I'm my muscles are locking up from dehydration.
Your heart rate's
heat
probably
stroke
through the
set
roof.
in.
Yeah.
I finally got to a refugio where, and they let me use the hose basically of this refugio, and I'm just drinking and taking, and like, I'm trying to, like, I was so far depleted and so far deep into heat exhaustion. I continued on. I got to my first like town, and I was supposed to go a little bit farther. I had a big climb up to the next refugio where that's where I was going to sleep. That was my stopping point. And I was like, I was destroyed. My heart rate was skyrocketing on just walking. Like, so I pulled an audible where I was like, I got a hotel at that little town. I ate entire pizza. I was drinking Coke. I was just doing anything and everything to resupply. And I woke up the next morning. I continued on, got up to, and on that, my heart rate was just ridiculous. I could barely walk. I mean, my body was just trashed.
Like rhabdo.
Oh, it was on the verge of that. And so like, I called it. Like, I knew, I mean, the farther I got off, like there was no room for error to get the FKT of this particular route. And so like, I felt defeated. Like, I mean, I had a lot of sponsorship dollars donated into it. I had other people there filming, you know, from us at that point in time as a self-supported, but they weren't allowed to interact. They just filmed from afar. A lot of rules have changed since and stuff like that. But like, I called it, and it was demoralizing, but looking back on it now, and I thought like my whole world was coming crashing down, you know, kind of a thing, being this, I failed at this big event and stuff. I went back, and that was when I went low carb. I made a decision. That wasn't just that, but I also knew if I was going to do this again, or if I'm going to do something like this, I can't depend just on water. I can't just depend on like this type of nutrition type thing. Like, I need a new strategy. And so I went back to the drawing board. And one of the things I did at that point, I was already talking and visiting the idea of going low carb. You know, Mike McKnight and Jeff Browning were really good friends, and they talked about, and I watched their success and watched their transition into that and everything like that. And basically, moral of the story is sometimes our failures are one of the greatest learning experiences. So would I change that failure? Would I change a challenge that created an opportunity to grow? No. And so my answer to them was, I won't change anything, the best thing I can do is change what I do going forward. You can't change the past. So why even ask that question? Would you change anything? I mean, for myself, it's created who I am as a person. It's created, it's helped me see out of the lens of life that I look out of right now. And so in that adventure, your potential, this life is the greatest adventure, are working towards whether specific goals is an adventure. If you're working towards something, you haven't achieved it already.
Yeah.
It's stepping out of that comfort zone to work towards something, and it's in the unknown. You're navigating the unknown. And so you use your tools and resources to help facilitate, a successful attempt, but it's not always successful the first or second or third time out. It might be, trial by error. But if you continue to be resilient and get back up and process and work towards it, you're eventually going to be successful.
Yeah.
And even if you don't actually obtain that one goal, you might actually figure out an even better goal and change directions towards something even grander or even more passionate about that you would have never known about if you didn't go after that other goal. So there's a lot of crossroads that create a full, colorful life if you're always stepping out of that comfort zone and striving to achieve and to grow and to progress to reach that potential. So adventure your potential is helping others and myself. I'm on my own adventure to my own potential, but also helping others through my coaching, others through encouragement, that people that reach out to me with questions, just friends and followers, is we all have strived for this, for something more. So
self-actualization.
Have that courage to go get it. And then I have, within my adventure potentials, I have 4 attributes that I basically share with others. My first attribute is attitude. So attitude is so much. Do you believe in your goal? Do you believe that you can attain it? Do you believe the goal is possible? It's in your attitude. Do you have that faith in yourself and trust yourself and that courage to actually get it? Those are all attitudes. Those are all attributes of attitude. And then also positivity, from a mindset, is your glass half full or half empty? Do you look at challenges as an opportunity to grow or something negative? If you're always focused on the negative of a challenge, it can become very overwhelming. But if you understand that when a challenge is presented, that there's an opportunity for growth and working through that challenge and figuring it out, because the more you know from an experience, when you're running 100 miles or 200 miles, when you're an ultra runner, you have nothing but challenges along the way that you are mitigating and you are processing and working through. The more experience you have of facing these challenges before, you have the experience to, correct them faster and alleviate the problem and increase the potential for success. So why would you want to take that away? Just like I was saying, would I change the past? Those challenges that I faced in the past made me who I am today. And so those challenges that we're faced on a daily basis creates the experience, makes us more resilient, more stronger, and we have a capacity for more and a potential for success. And so, attitude is that's why it's the first key. And then,
so what are some tools? Because I like almost getting into the how. So how is someone who maybe feels like they don't have the tools to have the correct attitude in their day-to-day consistency, or maybe they keep DNFing the same race? What are these tools that you're using that causes you to turn to problem solving or turn to having a positive attitude? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm trying to think of, I can't speak for other people.
Yeah.
I got to think for myself, what I've done in my life. Because obviously I remember as a kid, my parents would call me negative. Like when I was younger, I was they said, you're very negative. And then sometime within high school, some switch happened and I became a happy, positive person. I can't identify that. I don't know exactly what, but I do remember that my dad talking to me saying, you're very negative. I remember that. I don't know if that was the switch, and I don't want to be negative.
Yeah.
But I would have to say first is you got to have a conscious desire to want to change from a conscious level. If you don't think there's anything wrong with you, if you don't see it, you're blind to that, then, I mean, even if somebody's telling you, if you don't like look inside and say, do I? And be open to, are they right? Or are you always putting up a barrier saying like, I don't care what you say. This is who I am. This is what I'm never going to change. So are you willing to change? Are you willing to look inside yourself? I would have to say self-help books. Like I know when I sit down and read like a book like Grit or Mindset or Atomic Habits or like all these different books that I've read on kind of a mindset and like taking ownership in yourself, when you start to think, is this possible for me? Or how does this apply to me? When you start being open to how does this apply to me and have that desire to change, I think that's like the first most important step is, of the tool. Outside of that, then it can grow just like a muscle. Like the more you do it on a daily basis, like when you get up in the morning, like you changing your routine or changing your habits, or like what, you look at your goal and you work backward. I work backwards. I look at a goal and I go, okay, here's my goal. It's this far out, or it's this. Where am I at today? Where do I need to be to get that goal? And what needs to happen in between? And I kind of set like, this needs to change, or this, I need to get, whether it's like a speed goal or a distance goal or a strength goal. Like, obviously if I'm here and that's there, I need to progress to there. So what kind of milestones can I create for myself and a timeline? And then I focus in on today, this week, this month. Kind of, like that. And maybe even this year, if it's a long-term goal. Yeah. And then set yourself milestones. So if you're working towards a college degree, it's like, what do I need to do to get to that college degree? And I'm only a high school student. Well, I need to obviously register for college. I need to take these classes. And, you have like these milestones set up. Same thing with ultra running. I need to, start running would be a first goal. Get off the couch and start running, and then like slowly progress and increase and stuff like that. So from a tool aspect, I mean, it's a really great question. I hope the listeners kind of understand how I'm answering it is like, I would have to say it's all depending on what the goal is and where you're at, and just understanding the progression to get there and setting up short milestones. Like if you're running a 200-mile race, and I'll tell a client, don't be counting 200, 198.9, 198, 197. That's going to get really mentally tough. I'm like, let's say how many aid stations are there? The first aid station's 12 miles. The second aid station's like 7 miles. The next aid station's maybe like 20 miles. Run from aid station to aid station. Race multiple little races within the big race. Don't focus on the whole thing. Just focus on the now. Like, I'm running from aid station 1 to aid station 2. It's 7 miles. So focus in on that 7 miles. That 7 miles, here's the terrain. My estimated time to get there is going to be like maybe an hour and a half. So focus in on that hour and a half. Like, it's 5 p.m. and you want to get there to, by 6:30. Focus in on that. Don't think about the rest. Just be present in the hour and a half. Get there. Now that's behind you. Reset. Focus on the next, whether it's 15 or 20 miles. Okay, 20 miles. It's going to take me 5 hours, to get there, let's just say, depending on your speed and the vert in front of you. And then just break that down. You can even break that 20 miles down to an hour at a time. Focus in on the hour. That's like probably the biggest thing that's made me successful in anything that I do. And the way my mind works for me is breaking down into small individual wins. If you're making individual wins on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, before you know it, you're going to reach your goal. I mean, if you're focused in on the day and not worried about the year, not worried about, I just got to win today. If I win today, then tomorrow, and then the next day, I'm progressing and I'm going to get there eventually. So I'd say that was my biggest toolbox, is be present, focus in, and then, have courage and faith in belief in yourself, and understand that it's an emotional roller coaster ride,
Yeah, I've talked about this with other guests, how running seems to like pull your character from you. So like you get to see who you are when you're racing.
You're raw. I call it stripping away the onion, the
yes,
layers.
Totally.
The rawness.
Like these tools are funny because like staying present, looking aid station to aid station will help you finish your race. But also like staying present with your family, staying present with your work, staying present with, I don't know, whatever you have going on in life. Like it is just about like becoming a different person that eventually like shows up in your races and pays off in your training.
Well, just what you just said is so important. Think about this. When I speak to organizations and when I speak to even my clients, the process of working towards the event changes who you are, not the event. Okay? That preparation process, working towards the event, your preparation process, if you're consistent in moving forward, focused effort, and being patient as you're working through that, and those are some of more of my attributes that I'll talk about, will change you and create the experiences of the highs and lows and working through the problems to give you the necessary experience and toolbox to then when you go into your event, when it gets cold, what you should do. When you're starting to feel maybe a blister or to prevent a blister, you already know what to do. Hydration, you know what to do. Like all these things are potential factors of making it an unsuccessful if you don't know how to navigate those.
Yeah.
And so that preparation process actually is what changes us as people. And I believe, and why I love ultra running, I actually love fitness. I love adventure. I don't necessarily love running. It just happens to be
it just like is the medium.
It's just the medium. And I love the feelings. And I actually when I got into ultra running, it was more of like, this is tough and I'm really bad at it. How can I get better at it? How can I be more successful at this? How can I make this more manageable? Because I am a horrible runner. Like I have like no interest in it and I have to make myself go out there and do it. But when I'm done, I feel great. One thing I noticed was I got to marry those two loves, fitness and adventure, together. And then I started to feel the empowerment of working through hard things and problem solving. And it gave me, it basically lifted me up and gave me confidence that I can do hard things. Like when I started to, summit a peak or run around a mountain or go over multiple mountain ranges or go this distance, it empowered me to say, I can do hard things. And that process of training and being consistent and, yes, it's physical, but from a mental and emotional aspect, you have to keep it together. Like when things are falling apart during a training event or during an event, it takes emotional maturity and emotional strength to keep it together, stay collective, be understanding with the situation and problem solve and work through it. If you let your emotions get the best of you and all of a sudden you're like frantic and going crazy, we're going to have a bigger problem, kind of thing. So you start to learn this mental strength and this emotional strength and even a spiritual strength. And I talk about spiritual strength a lot with my clients and with organizations, not from a religion aspect, but from a character aspect. You start to have more empathy for understanding that you're going through a tough time. Well, your fellow runner, maybe next to you, might be going through a tough time. You might be on a high, they might be on a low, but you understand that it could change and they could be on a high in 2 or 3 miles and you can be on a low. And you become more empathetic to their journey, their process. And we see so many different people within this sport from different sizes, different physical backgrounds. I mean, it's amazing to watch somebody and you don't know what their background is. You don't know what their journey was. You don't know how far they've come. Were they like really obese and they lost this weight, in the process? Or, did they overcome a physical ailment? Did they, there's so many people that are struggling with different things, and did they strengthen that thing? And all of a sudden now they see the potential of doing something even more, and they've grown and they've pushed their limits and they just keep moving forward. And so you start to be understanding that all that character building that we go through our training process resonates in our other aspects of our life. We take that home with us to our families and to our spouses and to our children, and then into our workspaces, understanding that every person is on their own journey. Every person is struggling with their own elements. Every person has their own strengths and their own weaknesses. And if we can sit back and process and understand and be patient with other people, we become more our spiritual character becomes more resilient and more loving towards other people, and understanding that why are they acting this way if they're acting in a negative way towards you or something like that. Like, before you get so defensive and respond in a negative way, you don't know what that person's going through, or what they might have been at a breaking point at the end of that day, and you just got the brunt of it, or they might be like, I tell my son, he's 14, and I'm like, if you're being bullied at school, I want you to slow down to respond and go, because that's all you control is how you respond, and try to understand, is that bully or that person treating you this way, what's happening at home to him or her? What's going on in their life that is making them project this towards you? Are you doing something? Did you do something? Can you reflect in your side and say, did I cause this, or did I contribute, not cause it, contribute to it? Or the world, the stresses of the world and what's going on in the world. There's more factors to it. So that's the one thing I've noticed for myself is this ultra running for me has been a training ground and giving me this tool set to navigate life in a hopefully a more positive and better way, and understanding that I'm responsible for me. I can only control me and how I respond to the world and to my own life. And if I want to achieve something, it's up to me. No one's going to hand it to me. No one's going to give it to me. No one's going to, that's not how you gain or learn or, this character building aspect or empowering yourself is by giving it to you. No, you gotta go through the motions and earn it and achieve it. And that's something that nobody can take away from you. Yeah.
And I think too, it kind of what you were talking about with, it just opens a greater understanding to those around you. Not only can you understand suffering a little bit better, I think you understand why you're suffering a little bit better. People talk about the pain cave all the time. And for me, the pain cave isn't necessarily my legs are cramping, but it's not finally, but in my head, those self-doubts are the reasons that I think I can't complete the race. Finally, they're coming to a head, and finally, you have to face them. You face them and you conquer them by, completing the race or completing your goal, or you step back and you have to come back another day and learn to overcome them in a different way.
There's a real, one thing I've learned is, obviously people don't finish DNF.
Yeah.
quit, however you want to say it, unsuccessful attempt at a challenge. Not, and there's obviously a percentage of physical like injury or like a flare up. Like, and I'm a big believer, like the more experience you have in flare ups, what is, what you can push through and what you can't. What's going to be a long-term injury versus a short-term inflammation that once you get done with the race, maybe 2 weeks off, it's going to go away and some, stuff like that. And that's no big deal. But if it's something that you're like pushing into a medical situation that's going to put your long-term progression in jeopardy, and maybe even other people's like emergency services that need to be rescued or something like that. That's very justifiable. Like, that's very understandable. The rest of the DNFs, like the people or the unsuccessful attempts, I've felt even in my own life have come from not meeting your expectations.
Oh, totally.
It's like the number one thing.
Yeah.
You're in the pain cave, or you're mentally like not happy and upset because you had this expectation for this race. You've been training hard, you've been working hard, and things might be going sideways. And so your expectation of how you're going to do is really wearing you down, is really, you are really upset about it. And if I'm not going to meet that expectation, I'm just going to walk away from it. And maybe you're going to walk away and come back another day.
Yeah.
There's like, I don't like the word quitting or quitter. It's like, hey, I didn't meet my expectation. And you know what? If that's what you want, and 100% you're going to come back and like, I messed up here. I know I'm capable of doing this. I don't have anything to prove. I've ran this distance before, I've ran this race before. You know what? Call it. It's usually the expectation. Now, I'm not saying that it's a right or wrong, or you should push through it. I'm just saying people tend to like pull out of something or of a goal because they're not meeting their expectation. And it's just as long as you're okay with it. That's my biggest thing is like, who cares what everybody else thinks? What are you going to do with it? Like, and how are you going to let that affect you? Because if you're going to keep beating yourself up, you're never going to get back in and try again. That's hard, and I feel for that person and stuff like that. But I think the majority of people are like, okay, I didn't meet my expectations. I'm going to come back next year. What I'm going to do. And that's the most important thing, that they are resilient and get back up and come back at it. But expectation is a big one.
Oh, totally. Like my first ever ultramarathon that I trained for, I started running again after like years of not running. And I was so frustrated with my times and how quickly I was progressing in the sport. I was just like, this is awful. Like if I'm running these speeds, like why am I even running? But then like I did a lot of like self-help books and a lot of like introspection, and realized that like the goal of this race wasn't be the fastest person in the world. The goal of this race was to just be relentless and finish, like keep trying, I guess, no matter what. Because as long as you keep trying, you'll succeed. So, and it got me through my first ultra, like one of my favorite experiences of my life too.
Yeah.
Just to kind of learn that firsthand.
my first ultra, my first 100 miler. So I signed up for the Tahoe 200 before I even finished a 100-mile race. And
That's
back
so
in
ambitious.
And so back in 2000, so the first year of Tahoe was 2014, and I paced a friend 93 miles, and that opened my eyes. That was a pivotal moment to where I think I can do this. And at that time, to run the Tahoe 200 in 2015, you needed a 100-mile qualifier to get in. And so I picked Bryce Canyon 100, and halfway through it, I mean, I had GI distress issues where I was had the runs because I drank a kombucha the night before, and that was my first kombucha I ever drank.
Like, I'll try this.
Hey, somebody's like, this will help you poop tomorrow. Oh, great.
All day.
Never try anything new. The cardinal rule, don't try nothing new.
Yeah.
Well, mile 25 to mile 75, I was using the restroom multiple times throughout that process. No. But where I was going with this is my IT flared up like the back half of the race. And so, but I needed to finish this race in order to run the Tahoe 200. So there was, I had to finish. So it was worth the suffering, so I suffered like anybody that was IT, like the downhill just rips you up, and you're just like, I'm doing this hobble, I had no expectations except for finishing. So it was just relentless moving forward and finishing. Well, fast forward a few years, I've ran a couple of hundreds, I've ran multiple 200s, and I was running the Zion 100 as a kind of a training run in preparation for another event. And I was like on my PR, like I was blazing. I was going great. I was I was getting to mile 50 and I was way ahead of everything that I was way ahead of my own expectations.
It's awesome.
And all of a sudden that IT just something happened and it started flaring up. And I was like, nope, I know what's in front of me. I don't need, this is just a training run. Yeah. I'm done. Like I pulled into the aid station mile 50 with that. I mean, it was flared up. It was feeling awful. And I was like, all right, I'm done.
This is not happening.
This is not 50 miles is where I'm at today. And I pulled out and I don't even really care,
Yeah.
Some people might say, oh, you DNF'd that race. Well, one, I've ran the distance before. I've actually I finished that race a year before, 2 years before. And it's like, I don't have anything to prove. I just know what's in front of me with this pain and it's not worth it. For me. So
it also goes back to what you were talking about before with like knowing what your goals are. Cause like for your race, your goal wasn't for that race, I guess your goal wasn't to necessarily finish. It was to do well at a race later in the season.
Yeah.
So by stopping at mile 50, you were staying true to the goal that you actually had.
Exactly.
Which is probably,
well, I wanted to, if I would have pushed through, which I knew I could, one, I'm not going to hit the expectation of the distance. I'm going to hobble through that. Plus my recovery time is going to be really slow. Like you inflame that IT that much, then it comes chronic. Yeah. And then you're taking weeks off to recover from it, to re-strengthen it, and usually it's because your glutes shut down. So now your glutes really shut down. So you have to do all this like muscle activation to get it going again. And it's going to make your progression towards that A race suffer. So it's like, boom, pull out. I'm recovered in like 3 or 4 days. My wife can get into it with her elbow, relieve it, and then I'm back on track. And I still did a nice 50-mile training run.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, like especially newer into ultra, I hear the thing, why do these elites, the minute something goes wrong, they drop? You hear that a lot.
Yeah.
And then you have these other people that just suffer and just resilient and get it done. Why don't they get it done? I hear a lot of that. And it's like, so when you get onto that more elite level, so and this is kind of totally off topic, but it comes down to it. If they're not going to, so they have expectations, not on themselves, but from sponsorship and from brands. And so this is I'm just going to share this just for your listeners so that they kind of understand, is if you go into a race with an expectation to meet podium, because that's what, brand sponsorships are paying you, or
there are bonuses sometimes.
And bonuses, they want to see you on podium. And those bonuses that you either, some races have cash prizes and some people don't realize, but in their contract, if they make first place, it's X dollars, second place. So there's bonuses and that's how they live. That's how they train. So a lot of these runners will have a race and a backup race. And if they're not going to be successful, something went sideways, a lot of times they'll pull out so they don't have a crazy recovery process, and then they could enter this other race and potentially meet their goal over here. And so I mean, there's a lot of judgment in there, but I don't think they understand the pressure that's on some of these elites. And from a financial standpoint, you know, contracts, like if they haven't, they need a couple wins a year in order to re-sign, you know, and stuff like that. So I'm just sharing that, I guess, since we were on the kind of the topic of DNFs and stuff like that, it popped into my head. I was like, oh, I'll share this because a lot of people that are novelists in the community kind of like, why do the elites like throw the towel in really fast and walk away rather than grind it out? And you do have elites that do grind it out, you know?
Yeah. It's also just such a different race for elite runners versus like someone finishing their first ultra. Like it is a completely different race strategy. It's a completely different
It's a different
game.
world.
Yeah.
It's different world up front.
Yeah. I can't even remember what we were talking about before this.
I think earlier we were talking about my attributes.
Oh, yes.
And the attitude. And then
attitude.
So I have 4. So attitude and effort, consistency, and patience. So if any of those you want to like touch on or anything like that.
Let me read you actually this quote from your Instagram, and then maybe this can answer which one we go into. You wrote that ultra running has been a training platform that has allowed me to govern my own growth and development based off self-discipline and self-refinement. Right now, which of your 4 principles, because it sounds like those are kind of the principles that you're cycling through, refining your own growth and self-development. So right now, which of those principles maybe is helping you the most in your own self-development?
I got chills listening to that question. That's a good question. Somebody must be listening that needs to hear this.
I hope so.
Patience. Patience is my 4th out of the 4.
Okay.
Attitude and patience, I think, really rival number 1 most important in my mind. Okay. They're all important, but patience. What is the number 1 reason why we quit pursuing a goal? Because we want it now. Why does people, what is like the number 1 thing that creates people to like, you know, sacrifice their character to cut corners or to cheat because they want to hit the easy button to finish something right now? And so with that quote of that personal growth and that personal refinement, it takes patience to see it through. It takes understanding that there's you have to accept if you're going after something that nobody has done before, there's a reason that nobody has done before. There's probably a very high potential of failure to obtain it. And not a lot of people want to subject themselves to the potential failure, or they just don't believe it's possible. So they don't have that belief in themselves or the goal itself. Patience, if you believe in your goal, if you are striving to grow past your current state into this greater potential, you have to be patient in the process. And being patient is understanding that there's going to be wins and losses along the way. And that cutting the corner is it's basically limiting your growth. You're cutting opportunities. There's a difference between working smarter and then working harder, you know, if you can analyze something and it's like you can obtain that goal in a more efficient way, that's great. But if you're going to cut corners and skip out on stuff, you know, and maybe nobody else knows except for you, but you know.
Yeah.
And you're limiting. And if that was the only way to be successful is to cut that corner from a time standpoint or an ethics standpoint type thing, say maybe it's just a race and you take a different route than what the route that everybody else is. And you knew that there was a bypass or something. No one's going to know except for you. And maybe you win the race, but did you really win the race? Kind of a thing. And so cutting corners in our own personal progression is limiting our potential for more growth opportunity. You did not grow as much as you would have if you didn't cut that corner. But the same time frame has still passed you by. Time, we all have a certain amount of time here in this life. And time is the most valuable thing in life. And so what you do with your time, how you spend your time, is an investment in yourself and your growth potential. So every day you get up and you have 24 hours, you have a 24-hour day to invest in your personal growth. And obviously we all, spend time frugally, and then some of us spend time very effectively. And we start to realize, I think you start to realize from a young age, you're just kind of like learning and stuff like that. But when you hit you start to become more self-aware, and you start to understand that I have a limit, like say myself, I'm 46 years old. I know, obviously, I am in the best shape of my life right now at 46, and I know that I'm still progressing. I do know age is a thing, and there's going to be a time that I crest, that you peak.
Yes.
Where that is, I don't know.
We'll see.
But I know that at 46, I'm closer to it than at 36. So I have a less limited amount of time to reach this performance growth. Let's say performance from a physical performance, because then your body ages. So the more focused time and more consistent, and the more I utilize my each and every day, is going to determine where that crest happens, how high that potential from a physical performance standpoint I can reach. And so I know I'm starting to feel like less time in front of me. And so I'm starting to focus, I'm starting to fine tune even more and push even harder. And because I have a less limited amount of time, whereas a 20-year-old might be like, like I got plenty of time, 20 years in front of me or more, maybe 50, whatever. And so they might be not as, focused on every day. But what if they caught my vision at 46 and they applied it at 26 or 24, and they started to really pursue their goal or this potential, whatever they want at 26, where are they going to be if they do that every day until they crest? Like, where is that crest? And everybody's different. Every physical body's different. So we don't know where that crest is. We don't know where that peak is. But if they I don't care where it is, I'm going to strive and strive and strive, you're probably going to hit a more max potential than a person that's frugally spending their time doing less. So,
Yeah, I've never heard patience explained in that way, where patience is the act of using as much time as you can to hit certain goals. I really like that. That's actually very cool.
Be patient that it's going to come. And it takes courage to be patient.
Yeah.
It takes faith in yourself, trust that you can actually obtain it. There's a lot involved with patience, and being patient when you run into obstacles and challenges, instead of overreacting and just but emotional maturity, mental maturity, spiritual maturity, it takes patience to not overreact, to keep it together, to analyze, to apply and refine your emotions, and then continue on forward. It takes patience not to walk away from it.
Yeah, I think ultra running kind of is an amazing medium to learn patience in, because it is especially for someone like you who seems to specialize in these 200 plus mile races. You had that 800 mile FKT attempt last year, was it?
2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah. Just these extremely long attempts, it seems it seems like you would be the master of patience. So to hear that you're still working on it is like,
and I'm still working on it. I wasn't successful. Like I wasn't successful at the 800 miles. I ran into a physical issue. Like,
what happened? Was it a muscle thing?
I tripped.
Oh my gosh, that's so annoying.
So it's like,
that sucks.
Gosh, I was so destroyed. I went through the toughest, most like overgrown, like the worst terrain up to this. I was just past 200 miles. So I was out of the woods of the worst of the worst. Okay. I get out of like that some of the highest peaks and everything, and I'm going into a flat, runnable section, and it is the nice smoothest. Like it was actually a very well kept trail. It's the locals use it a lot. I was coming, the sun was coming up in the distance. I pull out my GoPro, or I pull out my GoPro to take a video of like this amazing sunrise. So I put my trekking poles under my arm. I did my thing. I did like a little like,
hey, what's up?
Hey, what's up? Check out this. Like, I go to put it away, and as I put it away, I can't find my pocket, and I look back at to my pocket, and I'm kind of like, and anybody that's gone 200 miles, you're a little like wobbly, like your muscles, and stuff like that. And there's this stuff called cat claw. It's everything has thorns in Arizona. Everything wants to kill you.
Kind of like Australia.
I don't know how the desert attracts so much pain, like vegetation that wants to cause you physical harm. Trees have thorns, bushes have thorns, weeds have thorns, animals have thorns. And I kind of shifted. Like I got close to this bush with a cat claw that rubbed against my leg and caught my leg.
Oh, no.
And and you kind of like, like if you're going to trip, you kind of catch yourself. Well, I went to catch myself. Like I tripped because I didn't want that thorn to pull through, like actually push into my shin. So it grabbed my shin. And so then I went and I tripped and I caught myself with my left leg went out. And when I did that, I did something to my SI joint. It just strained. It like locked up, and I put everything away, and I just started to go to this jog, and it just started to hurt worse and worse and worse. And to the point where I couldn't jog, I could walk. So I ended up having to walk like the last 2 or 3 miles to my crew. They're, I was about 2-3 miles away from my crew, walk there. And I was a good 12-hour buffer on the FKT.
Yeah.
And so I was like, no big deal.
Yeah.
And so I basically like had Brittany work on it. And for a little while I ate, I tried to let it subside. I did some mobility stretches. I went and there was a fire road to a single track that was about 3 miles long. I told my crew, just go up to the trail. Like I was going to run down this road. It super inflamed. I had Brittany work on it again for another few hours. Nightfall came. I went out like a mile on the trail, came back, and it was inevitable that it's not going to subside. It needs time to heal. And at this point, I'm going down to a walk. There's no way. I have 600 miles in front of me, walking with a pain in my hip.
Yeah.
And there's no FKT is going to be off the table. Finishing is going to be off the table in a time frame, that I need.
Yeah.
So it was just like, okay, the writing's on the wall.
Yeah.
And at that time, Mike, so we were racing each other. Like one started on one end of the trail and one started on the other end. There's a whole nother like podcast to talk about. It was a really cool idea. Well, he was running into some physical issues and some sleep issues. Well, this was
hydration, I thought.
Well, that was this last year.
Oh, that was last year. Okay.
The first year he went through, he made some like situations where the crew couldn't get to the crew spot, so he pushed through, ended up going through 2 nights in a row with little sleep that put him in a sleep deprivation, basically. And then that trickled down to causing from a mental and like physical issues from when sleep is super important.
Yeah. This trail eats people up.
It's not a long, I mean, it is a long trail. It's 800 miles, but it's not like your Appalachian.
Yeah.
It's like the distance that you have to have strategy. You have to have good weather. There's like so many factors that have to come in to make it successful. Plus everything wants to kill you on it and trip you and everything like that. So anyways, we both were unsuccessful, but I looked at it like, look, let's try to go help Mike. Me and my wife go help Mike to make sure he's successful. And then, he ran into some issues and stuff like that. But, I'm planning. So Mike went back to try to go after it like solo, not the whole challenge, a head-to-head showdown that we did the first time. He ran into some hydration issues that caused a quad to strain. When you get dehydrated, your muscles, if you get dehydrated, your muscle fiber, especially in that kind of an effort, become more brittle. And so you can tear. That's also probably why my hip strained so easily just off of a little trip. I didn't even fall to the ground. I just caught myself and it strained. And probably because of hydration and dehydration issues and stuff like that and overactivity. But so I plan on right now my plan is to go back in October.
Oh dang.
For myself.
I'm excited to watch that.
So that's my plan. Hopefully keep myself healthy through the summer and everything like that. But that's my plan, last week in October to go after it again.
Yeah, that gets me really excited. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I really admire your page, and what drew me to your page was the way you the mental tools that you have to take on challenges, whether that's ultra distance. And I think you do a good job of applying them to real life as well. So I am really excited to watch you this year. If any of our listeners want to watch you, where can they? What's your Instagram handle?
So
do you
my
do YouTube?
Instagram handle, this is probably my number one thing. Instagram handle is adventure.your.potential. You just put in venture your potential, come up. It'll have my logo.
We'll link that in the description too.
Yeah. YouTube, I do have a YouTube channel. I should be doing more here in the future. Right now, it's kind of
better
just
see that Arizona trail up there.
There's some stuff on it. I have some just stuff I've done myself. I've done the spine in Europe. We have a lot of footage from that. I've done it twice where I had a videographer follow me.
Cool.
We put together a little it's not a professional edit. It's just more of a really quick cut so that I could use it for a presentation. But a lot of people have seen it, so I don't take it down because it has a lot of views. So, but you can get on my YouTube channel and just kind of see different things that I have. But Instagram is probably the number one. And then my website is adventureyourpotential.org. And it's actually under construction. It should be back. I hired a company. They're doing it right now. It should be up and running in the next 2 months for sure.
Yeah, and if anybody would like coaching from Ben as well,
just DM me
DM him on Instagram. It sounds
Instagram, and I'll send over my pricing and everything like that. If you like more of a hybrid style, that's my style, that's my niche. It's the most important thing is for individuals to find coaches that identify with what their goals are and what they want to do and progress. And so that's the most important thing.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks
for
so
having
much,
me
Ben.
on. Appreciate it.